All right, let's talk about Mercury. It's the smallest planet in our solar system, the one that's practically hugging the sun. But, you should probably forget that image of a simple, boring rock. This tiny world is absolutely packed with extremes, and I promise you, it's going to challenge pretty much everything you think you know about our neighbors in space. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll bust a few myths that a lot of people still believe about Mercury. Then we'll dive into why it's called the fastest planet. After that, things get really weird. We'll experience a day where the sun actually rises twice. We're also going to peek inside its giant heavy metal core and finally explore its surface, a crazy world of fire and ice.
Okay, so first things first. Let's tackle a couple of common ideas about the solar system that just aren't quite right. Mercury holds some really surprising records that kind of turn what we think we know on its head.
Let's start with a pop quiz. What is the absolute hottest planet in our solar system? Now, your first thought is probably Mercury, right? I mean, it makes sense. It's the closest one to the sun. Well, surprise! The answer is actually Venus. And the reason comes down to one crucial thing: atmosphere. You see, Mercury has almost no atmosphere to speak of, so all that heat from the sun just radiates right back out into space. But Venus, it's wrapped in this incredibly thick, toxic blanket of an atmosphere that traps heat like a pressure cooker. It's a runaway greenhouse effect that makes it a permanent, scorching inferno.
All right, ready for another one? We know Venus and Mars are our neighbors, but if you had to guess, which one of them is, on average, the closest planet to Earth?
Believe it or not, the answer is Mercury. And I know that sounds wrong, but it all comes down to some clever orbital mechanics. So while Venus and Mars do make closer passes to us, their big orbits also take them way out to the far side of the sun. Mercury, on the other hand, just zips around on this tight little inner track, so it never actually gets that far away from us. When you average it all out over time, it ends up spending more time as our closest buddy than any other planet. Wild, huh?
So, moving beyond the trivia, Mercury's basic stats tell a pretty amazing story of extremes, starting with just how tiny it is and how incredibly fast it moves.
So just how small are we talking? Well, look at this. Mercury is only a little bit bigger than our own moon. And in fact, it's actually smaller than Jupiter's moon, Ganymede. It really is the runt of the planetary litter. But what it lacks in size, it makes up for with some serious speed. Mercury is whipping around the sun at a blistering 47 kilometers per second. That incredible speed means it completes a full orbit, that's 1 Mercurian year, in just 88 Earth days. It is truly living life in the fast lane.
For the longest time, this speedy little world was a huge mystery. We only got our first real look back in 1974 with the Mariner 10 flyby. But it took almost 40 years after that before the Messenger mission finally settled into orbit around Mercury in 2011. And that's what really rewrote the book on this planet.
Okay, so buckle up because this is where things get really, really weird. The relationship between a day and a year on Mercury is one of the most mind-bending concepts in the entire solar system.
Just look at this. 1 year on Mercury, so 1 trip around the sun, takes 88 Earth days. But a single day, from one sunrise to the next, takes a whopping 176 Earth days. That's right, a single day on Mercury is twice as long as its entire year. It's just bizarre.
And this strange timing creates an absolutely surreal effect. From some spots on the surface, if you were watching, you'd see the sun rise, then pause, then actually move backwards and set again, before rising a second time to continue its long trip across the sky. You'd get 2 sunrises in a single morning.
So, what in the world is going on here? Well, it's this amazing phenomenon called a 3-to-2 spin-orbit resonance. Basically, the sun's immense gravity has pulled Mercury into this strange, locked rhythm. It spins on its axis exactly 3 times for every 2 trips it makes around the sun. This perfect gravitational dance is what creates that whole mind-bending 2-day-long year situation.
All right, so from the sky above Mercury, let's turn our attention inward, because beneath that cratered surface lies what might be its biggest surprise of all: a truly enormous metallic heart. This is just astounding. Mercury's metallic core makes up about 85% of the planet's entire radius. Its rocky mantle and crust are just this thin little shell wrapped around a giant ball of iron. This makes Mercury the second densest planet in the solar system, right after Earth.
So why is its core so ridiculously huge? Well, the leading theory points to a really violent past. The idea is that billions of years ago, a massive object, maybe another protoplanet, just slammed into an early version of Mercury, blasting away most of its rocky mantle and leaving behind this super-dense, metal-rich planet we see today.
And all of that brings us to the surface itself, a place where all these unique properties come together to create a true world of contradictions and violent extreme.
With no real atmosphere to spread heat around, the surface of Mercury has some of the most dramatic temperature swings you can imagine. In the direct sunlight, temperatures can soar up to 430 degrees Celsius. But then, on the night side, they plunge to a frigid -180 Celsius. Literally a world of fire and ice. The surface itself is this ancient, battered landscape. It's covered in craters, a lot like our own moon. But it's also scarred by these enormous cliffs, some taller than any we have on Earth. They're basically giant wrinkles in the planet's crust that formed as that huge iron core cooled down and the whole planet shrank. And to top it all off, Mercury barely tilts on its axis, which means it's a world with absolutely no seasons.
So, okay, think about this. We have a scorched, airless world with no seasons right next to the sun. This leads to a really fascinating question. How could a planet this hot possibly have any ice? It just seems impossible.
And yet, it does. At Mercury's poles, there are these deep craters where the floors are in permanent shadow. Sunlight has not touched these spots for billions of years. And in those perpetually dark, freezing cold traps, scientists have confirmed there's water ice just sitting there, a stunning discovery on this sun-baked little world. And one final violent feature for you. Mercury has a magnetic field. It's weak, but it interacts with the solar wind in a really dramatic way. It can create what are basically magnetic tornadoes, these twisting funnels of magnetism that channel superheated plasma from the sun and slam it directly down onto the planet's surface. So clearly Mercury is far from the simple, boring rock you might have thought it was. It's this dynamic world of contradictions, a planet of fire and ice with a giant iron heart and double sunrises. It really makes you wonder, what other secrets does the solar system's misunderstood speedster still have hiding?